the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Services Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands in which we live. Just going to go through a roll call. Just say here when I call your name. Member D'Angela.
Present.
Member Eek. Member Gail.
I'm here.
Member Gibson.
I am present.
Member Lawson.
Here.
And we have regrets from Member McKendrick. Okay. Are there any conflicts of interest today on this agenda? Okay, thank you. Adoption of the minutes. I'm going to have members D'Angelo and Eek move that the minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, November 25th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Any questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Report from the board chair. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of its educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of issues currently impacting the policing community. On December the 7th, the board attended a webinar session on equity, diversity, and inclusion to learn about how boards and commissions can improve the experience of Black and other racialized individuals in law enforcement and elevate the image of policing within our communities. The next CAPG webinar will be held on January 25th at noon and is entitled Police Board Governance, a Primer to Brush Up on Your Basics. Webinar details will be circulated closer to the meeting date. On December 14th, the Niagara Regional Police Service held its 2021 award ceremony virtually, except for the award winners at the Americana Conference Center in Niagara Falls. The ceremony recognized significant accomplishments of our sworn and civilian members and their commitment and dedication to ensuring the protection and public safety of our community in the Niagara region. This year's award ceremony also paid tribute to the Niagara Regional Police Service's 50th anniversary and included the formal unveiling of the NRPS ceremonial sword that was designed in commemoration of 50 years of service to the citizens of Niagara by the Niagara Regional Police Service from 1971 to 2021. On January 12th at 12 p.m., the CAPG will be hosting its first virtual biannual meeting of board and commission chairs from across Canada. The meeting will provide chairs with the opportunity to discuss emerging issues, new policies, and other relevant matters of interest. And the next meeting will be on July the 13th at noon. Our upcoming meetings, members, the Police Services Board office will be closed for the holidays starting Thursday, December 23rd, and reopening on Tuesday, January 4th. Our next committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 13th at 9 a.m. And the next board meeting will be held Thursday, January 27th, 2022 at 9 a.m. These meetings are scheduled to be held by electronic through Zoom only. That ends my report. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Chief, I think Brett is giving your report because the chief is a little raspy. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll have Deputy Flynn provide the verbals for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chief. Deputy Flynn?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Chief. I will begin by just tagging along briefly to Chair Steele's comments regarding the award ceremony. They were, again, held on Tuesday, December 14th at the Americana. Usually, our awards ceremonies are held in the spring of each year, and those awards include participation not only of service members, but of their families and friends as well. However, due to COVID for the second year in a row, the award ceremony was modified. Chair Steele, of course, Chief McCullough, and Association Presidents Wazilovich and McGilly presented awards during the morning event this year. The awards were presented not only to currently serving members, but we also had the opportunity to honor and recognize some of our retired members, thanking them for their time serving citizens of Niagara. The award ceremony also, as Chair Steele mentioned, commemorated or recognized the 50th anniversary of the service And during that recognition, and as part of the recognition, the Chief's Honor Guard was presented by the Chief a newly minted ceremonial sword inscribed with the words, "In commemoration of 50 years of service to the citizens of the Niagara region, 1971 to 2021. And this ceremonial sword will be used by our honor guard going forward during the performance of their ceremonial duties. On to the Chief's holiday breakfast. Again, while COVID has altered how we'll be gathering for the holidays, it hasn't taken away our ability to help a child smile. We recognize that while we can't gather in person for the Chief's annual holiday breakfast, the families we support through community care still need our help. So in lieu of purchasing a ticket to the Chief's annual holiday breakfast, we've asked that everyone consider purchasing a gift card and putting a smile on a child's face on Christmas morning. As in the past, all proceeds from the event and the fundraiser will go to sponsoring families through community care. Community care is an organization with values based on compassion, integrity, and respect for all walks of life. Their mission is to bridge the gap to self-sufficiency by supporting our community members experiencing poverty. So gift certificates, gift cards are available in denominations of 15, 25, 50, and 100. And I'd encourage anybody who may wish to purchase a gift card to contact Mandy Asher in the Chief's office at mandy.asher@niagarapolice.ca. And that event actually closes. It's been advertised internally in the organization, but later today at 3 p.m. So just a quick report and a positive report. I have no new homicides or attempt homicides to report during the most recent time frame since the board last met on November 23rd. I am also happy to report that there were no fatal or life-threatening motor vehicle collisions through the month of November. Our collision reconstruction stats from this year remain at 20 reportable fatal collisions in the region, as well as 10 life-threatening injury collisions. So that is in contrast to 16 from the previous calendar year and 8 life-threatening injuries, and from the year before, 13 and 12 fatal and life-threatening injury collisions. Some news items that have come to light since the board's last meeting, starting with the arrest of 7 people in relation to firearm offenses in St. Catharines. So in November, our One District Street Crime team conducted a firearms-related investigation in the area of Louth and Nash Streets in St. Catharines. And on November 23rd, our emergency task unit executed a warrant as a result of this investigation and seized a loaded revolver and a speed loader, a sawed-off and loaded .22 caliber rifle, and a loaded pump-action shotgun with shotgun shells. 4 males and 3 females were arrested and are facing numerous weapons-related charges. On December 6th, uniform officers were at a hotel in Niagara Falls in the area of Ellen and Center Street, investigating a robbery that ended up being unrelated to the incident that I'm going to speak to you about. While on scene, officers learned about the presence of a firearm and drugs in one of the rooms at the hotel, and as a result, officers subsequently located a .22 caliber rifle with ammunition. A male suspect was identified during the investigation and arrested at the scene, and the male was also in possession at the time of suspected fentanyl, cocaine, Oxycontin, and over $1,900. So in this incident, an 18-year-old male from St. Catharines is facing 9 charges related to weapons and drugs. I also have an incident that detectives in St. Catharines are investigating, and it's a series of thefts from St. Catharines, and we're asking actually for the public's help through this board meeting, Chair. Investigators believe that we may have seen as many as 13 thefts that are related. In each of these incidents, victims have posted online ads selling either Apple iPhones or Apple Watches, and they're contacted by a buyer who states that they'd like to buy the product. The victim and the suspect buyer meet in each of these occasions in person, and what has typically happened or generally happened is that while the suspect is inspecting the item, they flee the area. So to date, all of these transactions have been linked to Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji transactions. And in almost all of the incidents, the suspect has a suggested meeting in the area of the Manchester Avenue and Carlton Street area in St. Catharines off of the Ontario Street entrances, or sorry, Ontario or Carlton Street entrances. So in none of these incidents, we haven't seen any injuries to the victims, and we're asking any members of the public who may have information to contact Detective Sergeant Carm Cataldo at the regular police number 905-688-4111, extension 100-9495, or to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. I just also want to note that there's crime prevention information also available on our website at niagarapolice.ca. And that is the end of the Chief's report for this morning, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Flynn. Are there any questions with regards to the Chief's report? Great, thank you. Thanks, Brian. Members, if we could jump to 8.1 for Member D'Angelo. He does have to leave for a bit, and I think while he's gone, there's an issue that he'd like to speak to. Is that okay with everyone if we jump to 8.1? Okay, perfect. So 8.1 is Thorold City Council, request for information on NRPS policing and additional policing measures. I'm going to have members Eek and D'Angelo move that the communication received from the City of Thorold be referred to the Chief of Police for further consideration and report back to the board for submission to Thorold City Council in response to the request for information. Member D'Angelo, did you have any comments on this one?
No, I just was wondering what the chief and his staff were proposed to do with this information that comes forward. I know traditionally counselors have approached me with some issues, and I forwarded them on to the chief for the appropriate. And then we've been working together on a few issues where it's gone to the specific Division 1 in St. Catharines, Thorold, to deal with issues that are in Thorold. But I wasn't aware of this letter till I read it on the agenda, that none of the counselors called me about this. So, and I know a regional counselor did contact me. He's looking specifically for the number of officers that are patrolling Thorold, and he did get a response. And it's an operational issue. And I know the NRP don't divulge the amount of officers on patrol in a certain area. But if the chief or the deputy can make any comments on this, so that way I could bring that forward, or what they plan on doing. I know it's to report back to us, but if they have anything in advance, that would be great.
Okay. Chief, is there somebody that's gonna, can you answer this, or do you want somebody else to answer? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'll have Deputy Flynn just provide a brief overview, but in the interim, we'll prepare a report and bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, thanks, Chief, and thanks, Chair, through you. Yeah, I guess in terms of actually telling, people generally how many officers we have in any specific patrol zone, I think what's important to mention, and the chief, has instructed us to prepare a report back to council through the board. But I think what's really important to just point out about policing in general and operational policing, frontline policing in general, is that we have units that are dispatched out of the our new location in St. Catharines. Those units are dispatched with sort of home zones or home districts, so that we can best respond to calls for service that may happen across that entire area, which, in this case includes everything from Port Dalhousie to Thorold to, the east side and west side of St. Catharines. So when we talk about zones, what we're really talking about is sort of the home zone and the primary unit that's going to respond to that call. But what we also have, because of how close we all are to each other, is that capacity to surge in any one area based on the needs required of a call. So, and I know, Member D'Angelo, you're vitally aware of that, and your time that you've spent on the board. But we will have cars that are, either just under the hill or working in the downtown area, and they can very quickly respond and help their colleagues have primary responsibility across across the zones. I won't go into any more detail than that, other than knowing that every centralized unit that we have in the service, including our tactical units and all of the specialty units that go along, obviously respond to calls across our region.
Okay, Member D'Angelo?
Yes, no, thanks for that answer. Yeah, I'm fully aware, and it's good to see a report coming forward. I think a little bit of education has to be done here for the Thorold City Councilors to understand how the NRPS works. Regarding that, I do, from a personal perspective, I do see a fair bit of officers in Thorold, and I see some proactive stuff happening. I've seen RIDE, I've seen there's cars near major intersections where there's schools, where there's been issues. I've seen people ticketed quite regularly. So I'm not specifically, I don't specifically know exactly what they're looking for here, besides the officer count. But I've always been one that promotes, if there's an issue, you have to call the service to make sure they're aware of it, and then you will get a response to it that way. If you don't call the service, then the responses won't be there, because they're going to where there's calls that are being asked for service. So I look forward to the report, and I'll just, if any of the councilors call me, then I can just give them a bit of an update from what I've heard here, and that satisfies me quite well. And thanks the chief and the deputy for their input on this issue.
Thanks, Member D'Angelo. Member Gail?
Thank you, and to save the chief through you to Deputy Flynn, how often do our staff sergeants and inspectors, et cetera, appear at city councils? Is it on request, or do they show up every so often, or what?
Deputy?
I would say more often than not, Member Gail, is that our members, our inspectors typically would attend a council meeting when they're requested. And if there's an issue that they're dealing with that they, I think would appreciate the help of the local council or some of the members working under their command. But it's typically when there's issues that need to be dealt with. And then I think we might also see it with new councils as well. I know the chief is always encouraged that when we have new elected officials that there's an opportunity for us to introduce ourselves at the operational level and in our local districts.
So as a result of this request from Thorold, if I'm a mayor of any other city, I'm thinking, well, we should ask, or especially if I'm a councilor there, I'm saying, well, Thorold's asking for this, we should too. So I'd like to make a motion that we request the chief have his representatives, and Deb, you can word this whatever you want, have his senior staff in each community appear at a later date to answer questions of the councils. I say this as a motion because as a police board, we should be proactive on this. And I know the chief, don't get me wrong, is into community involvement and that, and he would do this. But again, if I'm sitting in Fort Erie right now as a councilor, I'm saying, hey, they asked this, let's us ask this. Let's start sending letters through. But I'd like to have a motion out of this board saying we request the chief have his senior officer in a future meeting show up at each council to answer any questions about policing.
Yeah.
And before, I don't know if you need a seconder right now, or I get the chief or Deputy Flynn to comment on that.
I'll
First.
second it if it needs seconding.
Okay,
Perfect.
but
So
I'd like
I'm
to
gonna
hear from Deputy Flynn. I don't want to undermine the chief if he already had a plan on this.
Yeah, so Member Gail, seconded by Member Gibson, just so everybody knows. Bob, if we can have the staff sergeants that are in charge of each detachment do that, because I think they
Agreed. No,
they know
agreed.
intimately of each area that they go to. I know with Port Colborne, we've had chiefs down in the past when I served.
Yeah, I said the representative, Chair, so that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, if we could, and then also, we all know it is at the call of the chief if he sees anything different, but we all know that each of those staff sergeants, again, know intimate details of each detachment. So, but I'll refer this to the chief and Brett.
Yeah, Chair, I just wanted it on record that we as a police board are requesting this of the chief.
Okay. Brian?
You're on mute, Brian.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. I mean, typically it's on request of council that we go. But it's something that we can certainly coordinate with the clerks of the various councils and arrange for our district commanders to attend at an upcoming meeting to discuss whatever issues of the day are occurring in the respective area.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Member Lawson? Oh, before I go, sorry, on this, Member Lawson, or on something different?
On this,
On this motion?
yes.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So I'd like to actually propose a slight change to that motion, and that we actually go to the council, Niagara Regional Council first, to educate them, because I think it should come from the top down. My concern would be if we go to each of the districts individually, then the message could be slightly different. The message will be slightly different, but the overall message should start off as a consistent message across the board. And then the information could be disseminated into the correct areas, so that there at least is a consistency across that. I think once we educate the region, then of course the mayors and their respective councillors hopefully will also be educating. It'll be a consistent message coming from them, as well as going back to their respective councils. So that's the amendment to the motion for education. The other thing that I would like to see is, instead of, I'm reading through this and it says that they want from a period of 2000 to 2021, which is 21 years of information. That's a little excessive in my opinion. I think what I would like to see in that type of report would be the number of calls, the call times, and perhaps within the last 5 to 8 years. I think that provides sufficient information to show that the community is being policed appropriately, as opposed to 21 years worth of tax accounts. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense and isn't going to give the information that they're looking for. I'm sure that the point of this is to ensure that the number of officers are responding appropriately for the change in the demographics and the number of homes that are being built and things like that. So a couple of little different points there, but regarding the motion that Member Gail put forward, I'd like to see it come to council first on police. So sorry, I'm not sure how we word this, but about educating the council on police operations. And then subsequent to that, hopefully in the future, we could also do a similar type of presentation regarding the budget. So I think education is important at the region down. And if we start from the region, then we can work our way into the different respective councils.
Okay. Member Gail, is that all right to add the regional to your?
The only comment I'm sorry.
Well, as opposed to an amendment, if it could be a bit of a friendly amendment where it starts at the region and includes.
I have no problem with it. The only thing I don't want to waste the chief's time, because he was there a month ago and answered all questions on this. And I just don't want to waste the chief's time on this, because regional council asked every question in the book, as you know.
Yes. So with regards to that, Member Lawson and Member Gail, there is an election next year, so there will be new councils coming in. I mean, I have no issues with maybe us starting to go to some councils, but if we could maybe take the regional side of it and wait till after the next election because of the number of new people coming in, or potentially new people coming in.
I support that, Chair.
At the regional council, because Member Gale's right. Member Lawson is the fact that between the chief, myself, and the chief's staff that were at the last regional meeting, it was pretty in-depth that night. Of all the budgets passed, we were the lowest increase, yet we took the most time to do. So there was more questions to the chief and myself and his staff than there were on 2 other budgets that were almost 2 points higher than us, which.
And Chair, as a seconder, I agree with that. At this time, my belief, we don't need to be going to the region. We just did all that. And I see this as very much a local initiative, get to know your commander and local issues. So I support that stance that we just took.
Okay. Can we tie that in, Member Lawson, with after the new election to go back to the region, and maybe we try to get us into their workshops that they have as the new council comes in. Now, again, a lot of the people may be the same, but there always is some turnover, regardless of what council there is. So if we can actually have the chief and his staff attend one of the orientations, I think that might be better than just an open meeting. Because you can get in really in-depth details of things, and it's a little more comfortable for people to ask questions and there's more time available there than there is at an actual council meeting. Is that okay, Member Lawson?
I think I'd still like to see that we go back to the region and just mention that we're going out to the respective areas to talk about it, and whether there's some small presentation that's prepared or not. Again, it's just about educating the councillors of what's coming, and that it's going to be across the board rather than just for example, for Thorold or for Grimsby or whatever location. And it doesn't have to be a long presentation. It's just a matter of they're saying that we're going to be doing this presentation and maybe getting some feedback on the type of information that they would be looking for, because then we would be able to prepare it for everybody at the exact same time, rather than going to one. My concern is for the chief from an administrative perspective. You go to one of these meetings in Thorold asks a whole bunch of questions that you're either not prepared for, or Grimsby then asks some different questions. Or they're not prepared for the kinds of questions that are being asked for. So from an administrative perspective, starting from the region, knowing the types of questions that are going to be asked, letting them know that there's going to be a presentation that's coming forward. And if there's anything in particular, then you'd be able to consolidate all of that information, as opposed to going to 12 different municipalities and getting 12 different answers. Consistency is my concern.
Yeah, but when you're talking about going to each municipality, Member Lawson, we're trying to get the local detachment staff sergeant to do that. Because he is looking after that particular zone. And we all know every detachment zone has. I mean, we all have similar issues, but there can be quite a bit different issues, whether it's comparing St. Catharines to Port Colborne's detachment, or Niagara Falls to Lincoln, West Lincoln, and Grimsby detachment. So I understand what you're trying to say.
I'm not in disagreement that they shouldn't be talking to their respective areas. What I'd like to see is a top-down approach.
Yeah.
So rather than starting in the middle and then disseminating the information, and if there's inconsistencies, then having to work our way back up, if we actually start at the top to begin with and say, this is the type of presentation that we're going to be presenting. Is there any other types of information that you may want to see? Then there could be some consistency coming down, and it can come from your staff sergeants at that point.
Yeah.
Chair, to put this to bed, can we have a vote on the amendment?
Yep. Okay.
And the amendment is what, Chair?
So the amendment to the motion that's on the floor would be that the Police Services Board direct the chief to assign his district commanders to attend each municipality's.
No, I'm talking about the amendment, Chair. We're voting on the amendment. We're voting on the amendment first by Member Lawson.
Yes.
Which is go to the region.
Oh, sorry. Amendment to the amendment is what you want.
Right on.
So
amendment to the motion. I had one motion. She has an amendment.
Yeah, I was looking at, but Member Gail, I was looking at yours as an amendment to the motion that's already on the floor, that we further. So we take what Thorold is asking for, and then we add your information to it. I think it just flows better.
Yep.
Yeah, if that's okay. So I looked at Member Lawson's direction as friendly here, but I can take it as an amendment to your amendment, Member Gail, if that's fine.
Chair, I don't consider it friendly, and I'd like to have a vote on the amendment that Member Lawson's coming through.
So Member Lawson's amendment is to have the chief or his designates attend a regional council meeting regarding information that the regional councilors may have regarding policing. Am I correct, Member Lawson? That's the gist of your addition to Member Gail's amendment?
Yes, and it is meant to be friendly.
I know. So, but my two movers won't agree with you. So if everybody understands that, so she's actually adding in the regional level to this. Can you give me a date? And I don't mean a specific date, but do you want this done in 2022, Member Lawson, for the region?
Yes, whenever it's convenient for the chief and his staff, obviously.
And you want that meeting attending that meeting prior to any municipality meetings, correct?
Correct, and it's just really a informational session to say this is what we're preparing, and if you could send forward your questions, then that would be the approach that I would like to see.
Okay. Members, everybody understand that?
I do, Chair, and I'd like to speak to the amendment.
Okay, go ahead.
To the amendment. But
Yes.
regardless of that, and it's nothing against Deb, like we're all friendly here, but I see the time factor on this really adding up. If we have to go to the region first, put it on their agenda, and then go to the city councils, it'll be 4 months before you get to the city councils. And if I'm sitting right now, like I said, in Fort Erie, and that I want to get answers to the questions like Thorold just had. So this is where I was hoping the chief tomorrow would call his district commander to say, set it up on the next agenda, show up the city councils, or if he could. But that's the time factor is also an issue on this, because the region was just grilled the chief a month ago on this. So thank you.
Okay, Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, through you. And one of the things here that's important is that this is in fact a local initiative. And as I think you brought up, Chair Steele, it is very unique to each municipality. And actually, the agenda presentation by the NCO in charge would be minimal. And I see it mostly questions flowing from council to the officer. So in that sense, you're not going to prepare too much of a presentation. You're actually there to answer questions by the councillors. So in that sense, I don't see a strict presentation. It's going to be unique. It's going to be much more of a free conversation back and forth between the officer presenting and the local council. So in that sense, there's not really much. I totally understand Member Lawson's approach on that. But in this situation, I think it's a little different because the chief does talk regularly to council, and per Member Gail's point just a month or two ago, they fully understand. I really think it's a local initiative, and more localized it is and not a pattern for the whole region, the better it will be. Foster that relationship between that council and their local officer in charge of the detachment. So I don't see the need to approach the region at this point.
Good, thank you, Member Gibson. Member Eek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to comment briefly. I would agree that I believe this is a local issue here that's being raised. We need to respond in a timely and appropriate fashion to the city of Thorold. That's where the request has come from. We do that, and I would suggest that the chief indicate that the local district commander has responded to questions or issues for the municipality of Thorold, that a letter be addressed to the balance of the 11 municipalities indicating that they'd be willing to address any concerns or issues in a timely manner if they are presented to him. And this would minimize the amount of footsteps. I mean, we're all busy. I think we need to show the willingness to be open and transparent. And I think that's all that's really necessary. Deal with the issue at hand, offer further to the other 11 municipalities, and then see where it goes. If there's issues, we'll get timely questions, and they can be dealt with the district commander. And the regional level is for regional issues. I think this is more personal, one-on-one. This is a municipality to a council, and they want to address it. So those are my comments. I realize I'm expanding it somewhat, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Member Eek. Both Member Gail and Member Lawson's hands are still up. Is that for questions, or are they just still up? You're fine, Member Gail. Member Lawson, you're fine?
No, mine
Okay.
went back up actually.
Okay,
So
thank you.
again, really what I was suggesting, just to reiterate, is more of a consistent approach, much like Devin Clunas had come and done a presentation. I'm confident to say that he would do the exact same presentation to every police board that he attended, and then answered specific questions. That's all I'm suggesting that we do in this case, is that we have a consistent presentation. The chief just says to the region, we are going to be doing a consistent presentation, but the staff sergeants will be there to answer local questions. That's all I'm suggesting. I guess the other part to that is that the region or the local counselors perhaps should also be paying attention to the regional presentations that are happening as well, because if the chief has answered all of these questions at the regional level, then perhaps the counselors from those areas should also be paying attention to that. But again, that's enough for me.
Thank you, Member Lawson. I see no further questions. Oh, sorry, Member D'Angelo.
Yeah, it's not really a question. I just want to make sure it's out there. I know we were visiting each of the municipalities from a police board perspective, but unfortunately due to COVID, it had to stop because there's no in-person meetings going on at this point in time. And that would have helped in the education process because Thorold meeting got canceled. So we were never able to get to a Thorold meeting. So I just want to put that, we are trying to be proactive from a board perspective, but unfortunately timing and the issues haven't helped us.
Okay, so this is a motion on an amendment to Member Gail's amendment that we start off at the region. I'm going to call that question. All in favor? All opposed? And that's defeated. So back to the amendment that Member Gail put in, that we have the chief direct his staff to attend municipal councils in each district starting in 2022. Any further questions on that? All in favor? That's opposed? That's carried. Okay. So now the motion as amended, which is the original motion put from members Eek and D'Angelo with Member Gale's amendment. Any further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. So Member Lawson, I will speak with Member Gail and Member Gibson at Regional Council to let them know that we will be going out to each municipality through the chief and the district commanders, so that if any regional councilor has any specific questions for his area, we could at least let them know. But I understand where the members were going today, so I appreciate that. Okay, so item 8 is looked after. Oh, Member Gail?
Chair, I might recommend that you do that as soon as new business tonight, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can do that tonight. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good, thanks. So 8.1 is done. I know Member D'Angelo's got to step off for a bit and then he'll be back on. So that's looked after. Okay. Let's get into item number 6. 6.1 is the Kristen French Child Advocacy Center for Niagara. We have Brian Bratt, the Executive Director. He's going to give us a presentation. There's Brian. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good to see you again. So if you want to give your presentation, please start.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Deb, do you have the presentation up or?
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to share the screen in one.
Wonderful. We'll get started. I know that on time here. My name is Brian Bratt. I'm the Executive Director of the Kristen French Child Advocacy Center. I just want to take a little bit of time to introduce myself. As the Executive Director, I've been in this position for a little bit over a year. And for those that are not as familiar with our center, just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do, and perhaps more importantly, for those that are familiar, give you a bit of a sneak peek in terms of what we're looking forward to in 2022. So Deb, I'm assuming, have you got control over the slides? Perfect. So our center is, we're physically located in St. Catharines. We are located on a quiet, tree-lined residential street, and our focus of our work is to support children, youth, and their families who've experienced physical, sexual abuse, been unwilling witness to violence, experienced neglect, targets of internet luring, and more recently, working with youth who've been experienced human trafficking. Next slide. Our purpose of our center, as well as any other child advocacy center across North America, actually. I'm not sure if that's not coming up, but there we go. Is that first and foremost, we provide a physical space, a non-threatening location where kids and youth can disclose their experience of abuse. The goal for this, of course, is to really minimize the number of times that kids must repeat their experiences. And perhaps one of the most important things that we do is we act as a facilitator to provide a coordinated, multidisciplinary approach that significantly reduces the trauma associated with disclosing abuse. Go to the next one. So this multidisciplinary approach is really the key to kind of what we provide. And it's a model that can be found throughout North America in child advocacy centers. Now, currently, our key partners are the Family Counseling Center. We work with them to provide essentially aftercare support to victims in the form of social support programming as well as one-to-one counseling. This counseling that we provide is free of charge. And we work to ensure that there are no wait lists. Our other key partners, of course, are Family and Children Services. Family and Children Services does use our location for approximately 95% of all investigations. And of course, Niagara Regional Police, who currently use our center for upwards of 85% of all investigations involving children and youth under the age of 16 happen at our center. Now, this multidisciplinary approach, as I said, is a key component. As we look forward to the future, where we want to establish ourselves as more of a full-service child advocacy center, meaning that we would be looking to include other partners in this model, looking at gaining deeper relationships with both the medical community and the Crown. And the goal of this is to ensure that as kids come through our center, they're supported throughout in the sense that they receive support through investigations, pre-court, court support, as well as aftercare, as I said earlier, in the form of therapeutic one-to-one counseling. And again, the goal would be is a very child-focused, child-centered approach that really is in the best interest of the kids. And so as a result, we can go on to the next slide. There's quite a few benefits associated with this model. Children typically report being less frightened, less traumatized by going to the center, which acts as more of a neutral location. Caregivers and their families also report greater levels of satisfaction with the model because the system is more supportive. And as a result as well, from a child-focused point of view, CACs typically end up referring kids through mental health services as well as preventative and injury-related medical exams. You can go to the next slide. Again, we talked a little bit about, or I've mentioned, of course, being a very child-focused component, but there are also quite a few benefits to professionals in the overall community. When we work with investigative teams, again, this multidisciplinary approach leads us to better understand each other's team's roles, improve results through case review, and fewer children as a result end up falling through the cracks. So again, it's that ensuring that kids are supported throughout the entire process. Multiple interviews are avoided, making the process far more efficient. Again, we provide that singular location for all investigations. And when we look at examples across North America, there's an estimated savings of up to 32% when with CAC coordinated investigations versus non-CAC run investigations. And perhaps one of the other things I found most interesting when I started was the realization that, when kids are put in the right environment, the right kind of supportive environment, a couple interesting things happen. They end up providing more information and more information with greater detail. And that leads to a higher quality of evidence overall, which certainly supports the Crown. And the hope, of course, would be that it leads to greater incidents of prosecution. So the center does very effective in those manners. Now, we've been open since 2008. And in that time, we've seen over 3,500 kids come through our doors. And we started off with only about 50 kids a year. And these days, we're seeing upwards of, on average, one child, one family every day. So roughly around 340 to 360 kids each year that we serve. It's also important to note that we do serve kids from all across Niagara. Now, we're very proud of the work that we've been doing since we've been opening, but of course, we know there's opportunities for us to do even better. And so as we look forward, and we can go on to the next slide, into 2022, there's a few things that we're quite excited about. The first is the introduction of a dedicated play therapy space within the center. Now, this is somewhat unique in the sense that currently there are only 2 other locations in Niagara that offer dedicated play therapy spaces. One is a private organization, and the other is Pathstones. What makes us a bit unique is that from the other 2 is that our services will be provided to children that have come through investigation at no charge. These dedicated spaces, the one that we're planning here, will be approximately between 400 and 600 square feet. We'll be partnering with Family Counseling Center that they have, through our support, gone ahead and been able to have 3 of their staff qualified and certified as play therapists from the Canadian Association for Play Therapy. And we feel that by introducing this, it will essentially double the amount of one-to-one counseling that we'll be able to provide through the center, which will greatly reduce current wait lists, and will also allow us to expand and support kids that are far younger. Play therapy can support kids as young as 3.5 and typically up through middle school. So this will be a great complement to the space that we already have for one-to-one counseling, but will more effectively help the kids that we serve. The next thing we're looking forward to that's coming up is that in the spring, we'll be welcoming a specially trained facility dog into the center. Now, these animals can be used in a variety of different ways. We're looking forward to having the dog support in counseling sessions, both in the play therapy that I mentioned and our kind of traditional one-to-one counseling and support programs. The benefit to that, of course, is that children often progress more quickly through their therapy because of the fact that they feel more calm and are able to disclose, more information. The other, of course, is that they will be available to be used in investigations, which further supports our model. Again, the idea that when kids are a little bit more relaxed, they're more calm, and that they feel safer, that the dog will help promote that not only the quantity, but the quality of the evidence that they provide will increase. And the last thing that we're looking forward to is that it might not seem that exciting, but I just wanted to kind of end on this, is that in 2022, we'll be a part of a national association of child advocacy centers across the country. And that is significant because, currently there are about 44 child advocacy centers in Canada that are either currently operating or are emerging. And it's important to note that we were the very first. The Chris and French Child Advocacy Center was the first center in Canada. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Niagara Regional Police, that officers recognized that there was a better way of doing things. They looked into the United States for a model and successfully brought it here to Niagara. And so it's something that we were very proud of our legacy. We're very proud of the support that's been provided. And again, I just wanted to take a few minutes under of your schedule to recognize that and to say thank you for the support that the service has provided. And we certainly look forward to enhancing our services and continuing to work together in the future. So that is I think hopefully I was within the 10 minutes, but if there's time, I'd be certainly also happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. And we have member Gail asking a question.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Brian. Brian, thank you for this presentation. The whole time you were talking, and I'll go back, but a lot of the police officers I worked with in the 70s, lives were destroyed over this investigation from back then. And all of us on this board knows how devastating, more devastating than anything I can think of to this area. And that doesn't say that thoughts go out for the Mahaffey and French family on this, but how bad this was. And the whole time you're making the presentation, I'm thinking at least some good came out of that, if you want to look at it that way, in this organization you have and what you've done. So I'm going to ask you, can you make this presentation to the region too, or do you plan on making this presentation? Because everybody around here remembers this and how bad it was. And I don't care if it's Rotary clubs or whatever. Are you on the circuit of going around? Because again, you could have said nothing there. And the whole time I'm thinking, good, there's something good that came out of this because we're looking for anything.
Yeah, actually, it's funny to mention the circuit. Yeah, absolutely. It's been obviously difficult the last year or so. A lot of kind of places like Rotary and other organizations were either not meeting or struggling with the virtual aspect. Looking forward to 2022, I think things are either a little bit more open, or again, folks are a little bit more readily available to do something like what we're doing right now virtually. So yes, I'll be definitely hitting the circuit, and I would love to make a presentation to regional council. We feel that we believe in the work that we do. We recognize how important it is, and we want to other folks to know and appreciate that. There's certainly lots of ways that people can support and help out, whether that be from individuals or certainly levels of government. That we know that, as I said before, we're proud of the work that we do, but we know that we can. There's more that can be done to improve the lives of kids that we serve.
So I'm asking you that if you apply to regional council and they ask you to come to a committee, please call me, because you should be giving your presentation to the whole regional council on this. So thank you, Chair.
Excellent.
Thank you, Member Gail. Thank you, Brian. Any further questions to the speaker? Seeing none. Great, Brian. We really appreciate you coming out today. And I think Member Gail hit the nail on the head with everything that he said about your organization and all the good that's come out of it. So again, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all the support. Thanks all.
So I have members Gail and members Gibson to move that we receive this presentation. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 7, consent agenda. We have items 7.1 through to 7.4. I'll have members Lawson and Gibson move that. The information be received. Are there any questions on any of the consent items? Member Gail?
So thank you again, Chair. I have questions on 7.1 and 7.4, I'm sorry. First, the question on 7.1, and I'm proud of our service. I'm proud of the upper command on the COVID. Nobody signed up for this, and how they've responded. But my question is, I believe it's on page 3 of that report, through you to the chief, or to Deputy Flynn, I guess, whatever you choose, Brian, is the 189 offenses. I wasn't aware of this, and because we haven't received complaints, and I think I'm the one that gets the most complaints that I've sent through to the chief, I'm proud of how our officers, I think, have handled this. So Chief, could you please give a highlight, if I'm not stepping out of bounds, a highlight of what the offenses are and how you handle them, please? Because we know we walk a fine line trying to enforce something like this. Or Deputy Flynn, whoever, or Deputy 40, whoever you choose.
Chief?
Thank you. I'll do my best to provide a response. Throughout the pandemic, really our approach has focused on working collaboratively with our bylaw enforcement partners from the various municipalities, as well as the region's bylaw enforcement team. I think if nothing else, the pandemic really reinforced our need to be flexible and to adapt to the really ever-changing public health guidelines and restrictions with rules and regulations that were constantly changing and evolving throughout the pandemic. As a result, we've really sort of tailored our enforcement approach to a 4 E's approach: the engage, explain, educate, and enforce is really sort of a last resort. So throughout the pandemic, our officers have focused on providing a measured response to complaints and calls for service that related to violations of the Reopening Ontario Act and the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, primarily in response to complaints related to people hosting large gatherings, pandemic-related demonstrations. But we also work proactively with our bylaw enforcement teams to conduct proactive inspections with a focus on education and enforcement to ensure they were compliant with the Reopening Ontario Act and the EMCPA. So yes, there were 189 provincial offense notices that were issued, but again, we responded to a lot more calls for service in response to complaints that we received, and really again tried to educate and explain the laws because they were changing so rapidly throughout the pandemic. So I hope that provides an overview of our approach throughout the pandemic with regards to the enforcement piece.
So thank you for that answer. The 4 E's are the answer to it. You don't get to enforcement until you've gone through the first 3. And if they solve the first 3, take it you don't get to the 4th. Am I correct in that, Chief?
Yeah, I mean, each incident is taken on its own merits, and obviously, if we get repeat calls for service to a particular area, we saw there were parties that were being hosted weekend after weekend, and obviously they know the rules, so we in some cases jumped right to enforcement. But again, each case taken on their own merits, but utilizing the same approach consistently throughout.
Okay, thank you, Chair. That's my questions for 7.1. Do you want to open it to the floor and then I'll go to 7.4, or what would you like?
Yeah, well, no, we'll continue. If anybody else has a question on 7.1? No, just taking a statistic out of that report, we've had on average 8.5 calls a day over 365 days with regards to COVID. It just shows you the call volume we've had on that. No further on that. Okay, 7.4.
Thank you, and good job on that, Chief. 7.4, the auxiliary report. Obviously, the answer, well, you went from 64 auxiliary officers in 2016 down to 36 now. I know there were 11 that were hired by the service, and I think that's great that they do a good job in auxiliary. They come up. But are you concerned about the shortage of auxiliary officers? Is this caused by COVID? Hey, we don't want to go out in the crowd, or if you can explain that a bit, Chief, because I want to give a shout out also to the auxiliaries about what a great job they do at nothing, and that there's 98 hours that these people are giving in training. I didn't know that. Chief, if you don't mind commenting.
Yeah, Chief.
Yes, absolutely. They do a fantastic job for us. Unfortunately, COVID caused us to sort of rethink our deployment of them, and from a risk management perspective, we didn't want to put them into harm's way, so we have not utilized them really throughout the pandemic. We're starting to or we were, at least until the Omicron variant became more present. We were starting to bring them back and utilize them operationally again. We've seen a number of auxiliaries throughout the year who have gone on to become officers with our service, but we've also seen a number get hired by other police services as well. So it's kind of a good news, bad news story that they provide a valuable service to our community. And many are looking for law enforcement as a career. The number is, I wouldn't say a concern, but we are doing a recruitment drive to bring additional auxiliary officers onto the auxiliary service or the auxiliary unit. And again, we look forward to having them operational again in the field and bringing more on, because they do such a valuable job for us and serve the community well.
So thank you for that. My last comment, and I guess the praise goes to Deputy Flynn, but it might be Deputy Forty, is the budgeting of this. You've been following the budget. I see 1 year it was over. So good job on following the budget from a financial standpoint too on this.
Thank you.
Deputy Flynn.
Thanks, Chair. And just to Member Gail's questions and the Chief's response, Member Gail, we have put out a recent call out for new auxiliary members. It's gone on both our website and our social media platforms, and we're currently accepting new applications to December 31st. So anybody in the public who does have an interest in getting involved, that's out there right now, and it has links back to the applications.
That's great. Thank you. And I hope the press picks up on that. Thank you, Deputy.
Great. Thank you, Member Gail. Any further questions on any item? Seeing none, we're doing these in block. It's been duly moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. 8.1's been dealt with. 8.2, Police Services Board Bylaw Citizen Rewards, moved by members Gibson and Gail. The board adopt bylaw 393-2021 as appended to the report and authorize the board chair and executive director to execute the required documentation. Any questions on this? Is there anyone opposed? That's carried. 8.3, Police Services Board Bylaw Special Paid Duty Rates for the years 2021 and 2022. Moved by members D'Angela and Lawson, that the board adopt bylaw 394-2021 as appended to the report and authorize the board chair and executive director to execute the required documentation, and further that staff be directed to ensure that all documentation be revised accordingly. Questions, member Gibson?
And just for the public, that this increase and these numbers on the salary list is all the result of the recent contract negotiations. So it's important to note that it's been achieved through that. So it's not that the board is just arbitrarily giving a raise. It was all done through negotiation properly. And these are the new rates. So just for the public information. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. 8.4, Niagara Regional Police Services 2020 Annual Report, January 1st to December 31st of 2020, moved by members Eek and Gail, that the board approve the Niagara Regional Police Service 2020 Annual Report, and further that document be posted on the NRPS website, and that Regional Council be notified pursuant to Section 32.1 of Ontario Regulation 399, the adequacy and effectiveness of police services, and the information sharing protocol between the board and the region. Any questions on this? Seeing none, anyone opposed? That's carried. Any other new business under public meeting? Seeing none, we do have item 10 in-camera reports. We have reports 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. If I could have members Gibson and Lawson move that in accordance with board direction, the above noted in-camera reports be received for public information. Questions? Anyone opposed? Those are carried. Before we adjourn the public meeting, I would like to take this opportunity to extend the board's warmest thoughts and best wishes for a holiday season. While these continue to be challenging times for all of us with the increasing prevalence of COVID-19 and new variations in the province and our community, I would ask that we all think of our seniors and most vulnerable members of our communities, including those less fortunate and facing hard times, to consider reaching out or dropping off food or necessities for them. Throughout this season, and as we move into a new and hopefully better year, we wish everyone peace and connections with family and friends. On behalf of myself and the Niagara Regional Police Services Board, I'd like to wish everyone a very safe and happy Christmas season, and I know we are looking forward to 2022. At this time, I will adjourn this meeting, and the time is 10:04, so we will meet at 10:15 for our next meeting. Okay, thank you, members.